Hey folks, Lemon02. Going to be doing a very short, kind of deck revisitation and then some gameplay with this deck because it was requested on the YouTube page. So this is Ephemeration. It's essentially like it's kind of like Bant Blink slash Walk Pod. Is kind of how you would attribute this deck. And it's funny, I was actually talking about this deck with Ben Wheeler on stream the other day a little bit, or I guess texting, whatever you want to call it, Twitch talk. And he was saying that it hadn't, it'd been very hyped up and it hadn't quite been as successful. I think he said he saw it win an event under the piloting of Pat Bertuccio, which makes sense, a good player. I mean, he must be. If he won with the original greedy cheeky pod, had to have been a good player. I'm kidding, but anyway, this is kind of an adaptation on the walk pod style decks. And Bant Blink, because obviously you have some new tools that have gotten into the format over the course of 2019. A lot of them are in Bant. You have Oko, which is just exceedingly high card quality, and the real one that kind of brought this deck together was Ephemerate. I've always kind of had some, I guess maybe personal deck building predilections against the Bant style Blink deck, and the biggest reason being is it had too many Blink cards. The Blink cards are just so bad on their own. This deck realistically it only runs 3 Blink effects, right? It runs Ephemerate and then it runs Soul Herder and Charming Prince, which are cards that in and of themselves, other than Ephemerate, are cards in and of themselves that present a blocker, a threat, a means of value, basically something that can attack, block, do a basic magic function. Outside of something kind of fancy, Ephemerate, yep, it's just operative. So it is the only pure Blink spell this deck's running. But if you haven't watched my previous video, I'd recommend you go back and do it. But the general theory of this deck is, you play a what appears to be a value-oriented mid-range game plan, using a lot of cards that draw other cards when they come into play, block really well. Deck tends to be very good against aggressive decks because, sometimes it dies to pop, but, otherwise it's got a lot of little blockers that, just are pains in the ass, and provide you some interim value and generally come at pretty large card disadvantage, almost 2 to 3 for 1, to actually get off the board to continue to progress an aggressive game plan, etc. The other thing with this deck is it has a much lower converted mana cost than the Bug Walk Pod decks or the Bant Blink decks, which tended to have They had struggles versus the more unfair decks of the format. So think your Academies, think your Storm decks, those decks tended to really punish this style of deck. Maybe even Hoof to some extent, but this deck, I found I could beat Hoof with this deck. Even if I have to take some weird lines if they're really fast out of the gates, it's a little die rolly, but you can, because you can, as quick as turn 3, really get your combo going. Now, that doesn't mean you win by turn 3. You probably win by turn 10 or 12 because you just draw a bunch of cards and eventually kill them with whatever, a 1-1. It's kind of how the deck's set up. But the operative component of this deck, at the end of the day, is Spellseeker right here. It's a 1-pointed card in the format. However, in this deck, I would say one of the reasons I kind of like the positioning of this deck is because I feel like there are a lot of what I tend to call virtual points built into it. Spellseeker's a 1-point card. In this deck, in my opinion, from playing a decent bit of the format and just 100 card in general, Spellseeker punches a lot harder than 1 point in this deck. It's a 1-card combo in this deck. So the way the combo, the actual engine or the core of the deck works, is you find a Spellseeker in some way, shape, or form, of which we have a lot of ways to do it. This entire pile right here is just ways to manipulate the deck. Some of these are just hard tutors, some of them are manipulation, the most powerful manipulation. But basically, you find the Spellseeker. You can do it with 0 cards in hand. You ostensibly want 3 additional mana after you find the Spellseeker, but you find the Seeker, you cast Ephemerate, targeting the Seeker blinks, you find Time Walk, you take an extra turn. On your next turn, you target the Spellseeker with Ephemerate again, and then, you find something like Green Sun Zenith, or if you have a 2-drop creature in play, you find something like Neoform or Eldamri's Call, and then you find this card right here, Eternal Witness, which will get back your Ephemerate, which the Ephemerate will then be cast to target the Eternal Witness, which will get back Time Walk. You'll cast the Time Walk, taking an additional turn. The Ephemerate will rebound again, targeting the Eternal Witness, which will return the Ephemerate. The Ephemerate will be cast again ad nauseum, targeting the Eternal Witness, returning the Time Walk, taking an additional turn. On the rebound, you keep going. You get the point. So basically, it's just take all the turns deck. And this can happen as fast as turn 3, turn 4. Because we are a Mana Dork deck, you can see we have actually a lot of lands for the low curve of this deck. It's a very mana-hungry deck. It's trying to do a lot of things really fast if it needs to. because I wanted the deck to be capable of winning unfair matchups. Decks like this tend to languish, or decks like traditionally like this tend to languish in the unfair matchups. I could possibly go down to 34 lands in this deck. I did make a recent change to the mana base, which included cutting Sunpetal Grove and the blue-green fast land. I put these 2 lands in because there is some truth to the fact that like sometimes you will just flood out a little bit. Yeah, you take damage off these lands, but this deck doesn't really have a bad matchup versus aggro decks, like decks that are trying to attack your life points directly. They can still get you. Don't get me wrong. Like red deck wins can still just beat any deck, including this one. I don't think it's a great matchup for them, but they definitely have tools to interact with it. And like your combo tends to be less relevant in that because it's dependent upon a 1/1 creature, which they can kill at instant speed pretty easily. So you don't tend to go for it. You tend to just try to do the value game. But anyways, I found that I think the deck wanted these 2 lands, so I cut a check land and a fast land, and put in the equivalent mana producing lands of the canopy variety, the card drawing variety. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So 35 lands, very very low curve, 13 mana producers. Wood Elf's maybe not a mana producer. It's actually like a tutor for a land. But for the most part, there's a ton of mana production. The deck functions very well. It functions much better when it has like turn 1 acceleration. And it's not one of those decks where if they like deal with it, like your game plan's over. Generally speaking, if they're taking the time to deal with it, they're not doing something else to progress the board state, which tends to be fine for you because you just want to buy time to build up your mana resources, build up your options in hand, and then just go to town with the combo or just value them out with mid-range idiots. Yeah. So I'm not going to cover. I didn't make any deck changes to this, I don't believe. But basically, to cover down kind of on like what the deck has in it. This 7 pile right here, the cantrip creatures. They come into play. They draw you a card. They're in here primarily because they do provide some interim value. They're very good against aggressive decks, but they also build equity into my tutor suite, which includes Neoform, includes Eldritch Evolution, Chord of Calling, and Diabolic Intent. I really want to run as many of these style of cards, like these creature-based, like these tutors that interact best with creatures in the deck, and these cantrip creatures really help to do that while providing some interim value. Like, if you Diabolic Intent a Wall of Omens, you're not intrinsically down a card. You're down some tempo, but you're not down a card, and maybe you got to block for a turn with your Wall of Omens, etc. And that's kind of the idea behind why I like running these cards. I mean, I just like running them, period, because I'm a huge, like, Wall Blossom / Omens fan. I just love these kind of cards. Because they're just fun to me, and they represent a bit of flexibility when you complement them with this sort of tutor suite. And 2 is really important in this deck too, because most of my creature-based tutors that involve Sacrifice, Neoform, Eldritch Evolution go up 1 to 2, and oftentimes what you're trying to find is your Seeker or your Eternal Witness to win the game. So yeah, that's why they're in here. Then you have the mana acceleration / ramp, 1 mana primarily ramp, but we are playing Paradise Druid, Sylvan Caryatid, Wall of Roots, and Lotus Cobra. Wall of Roots really just because we're a core deck, and it also again blocks really well. Like it just keeps you alive for a while. It's a pain in the ass to deal with. It's a 5 toughness thing. Yeah, just pretty good. All right, then you have your like recursion cards. So like the deck also has a recursion sub theme. One of the issues you could run into with this style of deck is like it can get hosed, right? There are hate cards that deal with this deck, like Hushwing Gryff, Hushbringer, which is one that like oddly enough I played against a decent bit recently. Like I didn't think the card was good enough for Highlander. I played against it quite a bit, but one of the interesting things is you do have a significant number of like actual literal spells. Like you have removal in this deck, which is in my opinion pretty good. You also gained Oko, which deals with problematic permanents that kind of hose you. Yeah, so you're not like just dead in the water to like a Torpor Orb like effect. It's not good for you, but like you have quite a few ways of dealing with it, and because our tutor suite is kind of based around interacting with creatures or sacking creatures to find things, you tend to be able to find like what it is you need. Like Humility is a card that could be problematic, but again, like we're running Assassin's Trophy in the deck to be able to deal with something like that. We're running Teferi, Time Raveler for multiple reasons. I mean, just on card quality alone, this card is worth running in this color pie, but it also serves a pretty important function outside of like preventing us from getting outblued by blue decks. It serves a pretty important function to build some equity in one Savine's Reclamation, and also to get rid of problematic enchantments that cost more than 3. along with Assassin's Trophy. And then like you have cards like Abrupt Decay, Fatal Push, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, and a lot of ways to get after them. I do think running at least a minimal suite of removal is important because there are going to be decks like Death and Taxes that will have creatures that prevent you from winning with your primary game plan and or dropping the deck's ability to kind of accrue value over other mid-range style decks. All right. So, you have this recursion pile right here. Bring stuff back, whether it be spells with Snapcaster, Regrowth, which is actually an important one because sometimes you get into weird combo loops with this deck where your Spellseeker's been exiled. I think I had that happen today, and, you need to Regrowth for a turn cycle to get enough mana to find your Eternal Witness to get back the Time Walk, which is already in or the Ephemerate, which is already in your bin. So you regrowth a Time Walk or something to buy time to build up your mana base, whatever. Regrowth, it's just really good with the Seeker decks. Like, I tend to find, like, this card is kind of getting outshined in the format, but, like, when you're running Seeker, I feel like Regrowth's fairly free. I could be wrong on that, but I've definitely liked it in the deck. Renegade Rallier, just a mid-range card that also randomly can ramp you, which is quite good, especially in a mana-hungry deck like this. Vesperlark, I've actually been pretty high on this card. In this deck specifically. I mean, because it finds, like, the most operative card Spellseeker in my deck, or it gets back the most operative card Spellseeker in my deck, I've been pretty happy with it. You can do some pretty degenerate stuff with it, and, where are you at, buddy? Where are my blink effects at? Soul Herder. Soul Herder's pretty fun with Vesperlark as well. Card's quite good, and there's a lot of just dorky stuff that, like, draws cards, yeah, so you can just get those back as well. Savine's Wreck, card's great in this deck. I don't know if it's as powerful. It's kind of funny, right? Because, like, I was building this deck. I built this deck kind of as a spin-off to Hot Tub Time Machine. Personally, I think this deck is better than Hot Tub Time Machine. I think it's a better holistic deck. I don't think it's as cool, but I think it's a better holistic deck than Hot Tub Time Machine. But I think Savine's Reclamation has more equity built into it in Hot Tub Time Machine. I think it's a better combo with the lands engine than it is with this engine. But because this deck, again, is producing a ton of mana with a very low CMC count, this card's very, very powerful. And it builds a ton of equity into Intuition as well. Because we had this point to kind of work with. And I was like, Intuition with Savine's Rec is pretty damn good. I mean, they give you the Savine's Rec, but then you get 3 things back, etc. So, it makes it pretty problematic. And especially because we're kind of like in a way, we're a 1 to 2 card combo, really a 1 card combo. I mean, we're a multi-card combo that really only depends on 1 card to get the chain going. Savine's Wreck can be very good that way, too. All right, tutors. So, tutors and card selection. I just put Ponder and Brainstorm in here, but this is basically tutors. Ponder and Brainstorm just in here because if you're playing blue, and you have fetch lands, you should play them. They just win games, right? Like, they're very, very good. If you use them well, they're some of the best cards in the format. Yeah. And then there's a whole boatload of tutors. A couple cards I'm not running. I'm not running Wargate in this deck. I could see you trying to run Wargate. I think I tried running it. It's just too slow. It's just too much mana. And the same thing was true of Finale of Devastation. Tried that card out too, but I was not that impressed with it. It was just a little bit too much mana for what I was trying to do. You may say the same thing's true of Chord, but Chord works with a progression of mana dorks and walls and whatnot. But it's also instant speed, which kind of sold me on it. But you could try out Wargate. You could try out Finale of Devastation if you wanted some more tutor effects. All right, this next file is just my interaction. Actually, this deck's actually more interactive than you'd think, and I kind of like that about it. It's not. It has a ton of equity built into the main combo. It's very resilient, and it's very well, I wouldn't say it's resilient. Like you play it differently depending on matchup, right? Like if your combo is going to get disrupted by creature removal, you have options to kind of just outvalue your opponent and just kind of play a more anemic but a beatdown plan that will eventually win the game, that forces them to use their mana to do something to proactively impact the board directly at sorcery speed, and then you just go for it, right? You don't want to just YOLO it out there. Sometimes you do, depending on the matchup. If it's a matchup where they're not interacting at instant speed, just YOLO it out there and win, because you will. But this is actually the interactive pile. It has the only 4-drop in the deck. Palace Jailer's card is just absurd. Wins a lot of games. Leovold. This is so one of the things that I was saying, I wanted this deck to kind of play with similar play patterns but faster to Bug Walk Pod and and Bamplink. but I wanted the curve to be lower, I wanted to be quicker. One of the things I found is I had a lot of slots for like disruption, like just interaction. Some of it's like denial based disruption, but like Leovold very good against blue decks, very good against targeted removal. Like if they remove your spell seeker in response to an ephemerate, you get to draw a card off of it, and you can just outvalue them. Oko, just absurd. I was talking about this card's relevance in regards to interacting with permanents that non-enchantment based permanents or walker based permanents that negatively impact your ability to win with the combo and or stop your value engine of your creatures. This card does it, but it's also just really good. It also just randomly is a deck unto itself that wins the game. Teferi, yep, absurd. Knight of Autumn, yep, just being able to blow stuff up, being able to gain life. This card's just so flexible. Very, very good. Kimball, pure disruption, but the card's quite good. One of the historic kind of problematic matchups for decks like this is the Storm decks, right? The really fast kind of combo-y decks that play with a lot of hidden information, but having this card in play, in a minimum, puts the bar up to them having a Chain of Vapor or an Into the Royal type effect. Wipe away, whatever it might be. I'm trying to think of what's the one that echoing truth, echoing something. Anyway, there's some echoing card that does it too. It's a 2-mana one. But anyways, if they have bounce effects, which they're going to have in their deck, they're going to have Aether Spellbomb, Chain of Vapor, more than likely in most of the Storm builds. They can deal with this card, but it puts the bar up to them having it and forcing them to probably use tutors to find it. 3 toughness is really big against that style of deck because they don't tend to, unless they're playing Bolt directly, they tend to have a lot of ways to do 2 damage, not a lot of ways to do 3 directly. Kitchen Finks, yeah, just a lot of life gain. This is disruption for the aggressive decks. It's also just kind of a pain in the ass to deal with for most decks. Pride Mage deals with artifacts, enchantments. Yep, still great. Also just beats down. Voice of Resurgence, again, this is kind of like with Leovold, just a hedge against the blue decks. It's just very good against the blue decks. They're going to be countering your spells. You don't care because you're getting 4/4s, 5/5s, 6/6s off of it. Goyf, I actually put Goyf, so the longer I play this format and just Magic in general, I think of Goyf as a disruptive card, which is funny. This card just hands down beats red deck wins, right? It just beats aggressive decks. You just put this dumb down and what are you gonna do about it? They have to do something about it, so it takes up their time to cast their Swords to Plowshares, their Path to Exile, their Fatal Push or whatever. And if they don't have it, then they're not attacking you, and then you have time to kind of sit back and do your quote-unquote bullshit, draw a bazillion cards, game plan, and eventually combo them out. So yeah, Goyf is kind of in here really, 1, card quality, just a very high-quality card, and 2, it's actually very disruptive against aggressive decks. It's a really good wall. Trophy Decay, yeah, not much to be said. They're just really good removal spells. Scavenge Use, yep, again, very, very disruptive. You can put Deathrite Shaman over in the disruption pile too, but it's in here for mana, primarily. Oof. So I'm running Oof in this deck because there's only 1 artifact in the deck and it does not have an activated ability. It has a triggered ability, and that is the Baleful Strix. And also, I guess I didn't cover it, but this is a survival deck. You could run Pod in this deck. I tend to like survival better. I think it provides a little more flexibility in this build, and it requires Pod tends to require chains to be built in, and when you start building chains into your decks, you build equity in Pod, but you also reduce overall independent card power or card quality. Because, for instance, Body Double, not a good card. Not a good card. It's good in the context of using it, or Archaeomancer, not a great card. It's a 4-mana, regrowth, which is fine. I mean, I don't have anything against the card. I guess the point is, you could do better at 4 mana, right? So, if I drew this card outside of context of the deck it was in or the circumstance that I was in, would it be good? And, I'm not saying they should not be, high synergy decks. I just think that if you can still have equity in a high synergy plan with higher card quality, you tend to want to go that route. So yeah, that's kind of one of the building philosophies that I have in this format. Anyway, Oof is in this deck just because it can randomize people. I'm a deck that tutors a lot. I'm a survival deck, so if I don't want this thing, I can get rid of it. I'm on the Fauna Shaman as well, which can get rid of it. And sometimes you just cast it out and you end up neoforming it into an Eternal Witness or whatever. So, is it oftentimes all that relevant? No, but when it is, it's really relevant. It's a deck that can tutor for creatures and put them onto the board very easily. So I kind of like running the card in a list like this. Fatal Push, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile. Again, you just want to have this really good 1-mana removal. Helps you deal with problematic permanents that maybe stop the ability of your cards to ETB. Caracas is really good. Like I said, changed the mana up a little bit recently, put in Horizon Canopy and Waterlogged Grove to augment it. Also, a Gaia's Cradle deck. I haven't run a lot of Gaia's Cradle decks in recent history. I'm not a big Hoof fan. I think Hoof's good. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great deck, and if you enjoy playing it, please love your deck. Just not my style of play. Not, how do I put it? I feel like the games you win on Hoof, there's not as much, you don't have as many options as a pilot to make a relevant difference in how games would go. And that's not to say that's always true, but it's true in a lot of cases. If you draw the Stone Nuts, the Academy, or Hoof, you just generally win. It's more about what your opponents brought than it is how you play what you brought. And like I said, that's not a holistic statement. That's not universally true about that deck. There are, you will do better with that deck if you play well. But the opportunities for what I'm talking about are lower, right? Than on a deck maybe like this, or like Hot Tub, or Storm, those style of decks, D&T, where, you have to make, you as a pilot make a big difference in how your deck will do in a match. Yeah, so anyways, I play Cradle in this deck because it's very good in this deck. There's a lot of creatures in the deck, 40, and this deck's very mana hungry. It's looking to 2 and 3 spell by turn 2 and 3. So yeah, Cradle is quite good. The mana tends to be colorless. You have a lot of green requirements. You're a green X deck, for lack of better terms. But yeah, card is just quite good. Anyways, guys, that's all I'm going to do for the deck. There is a deck tech up on this deck. Like I said, the only changes I think I've made recently was Horizon Canopy and Waterlogged Grove over a check land and a fast land, because we are a little more mana rich, and the deck can flood, and you don't want to flood. So having 2 ways to produce my mana early and then transition into card draw later, I think is the right move to make for the deck. Quick pause, guys. I'll be back momentarily with a bunch of gameplay with this deck. Alright, guys, we are back playing against Brahms here. This hand's acceptable. It's got a turn 2 mana accelerant, fetch land to protect against Wasteland. Opponent plays a filter land turn 1, which either means they have a lot of lands or not a lot at all. Play the fetch. Most likely line of play is just to get the Paradise Druid down. Tainted Pack's not a bad draw. This hand, realistically, in my opinion, wants to get more mana. The hand itself is great. It's got all the cards it needs to really win the game, to get after the combo. Playing against some sort of Abzan deck, it appears. They play on a Tireless Tracker, which is a good value engine. The problem with my deck is I'm not really... the problem with Tireless Tracker versus my deck, and a big reason why I'm not running the card, is because my deck appears to be incremental, but... it's really kind of about finding a combo. And you could say Tireless Tracker in that case because your mana rich is strong. But 2 mana is a lot just to draw cards. I think you can do better. I block here to force them to tap their mana. I actually also don't really care about Ooze all that much. I want to get their card engine off the board. I go ahead and exile my mana producer. Go ahead and blink the wall twice just to find land drops here, because I can get that back. I go ahead and Eldritch Evolution, find Seeker into Time Walk. The plan here is I'm going to use the Tainted Pack to either find Eternal Witness or find Regrowth for Ephemerate to find Eternal Witness, essentially with the recast on Rebound on the Seeker. The problem is I'm a little mana shy, so I go ahead and just start using Oko, which I drew off of the Ephemerate on the wall, to start elking their cards. I elked their Murderous Red Cap first because I figured they're probably a combination style deck, Abzan deck with some sort of sack outlet and Malira combo or something. There's a couple Malira combos now. They're not even involving Malira anymore. I just go ahead and get a Soul Herder. I intuition get a Soul Herder, Recruit of the Guard, and Savine's Wreck. It really didn't matter all that much what I got, to be honest. I wanted it to involve Savine's Wreck, but I was just basically trying to draw more interaction out of their hand, which in this case is the Aven Mind Sensor, which is kind of nice because now I can Oko their Mind Sensor and get them with it. So they blink the Murderous Redcap to probably kill my Vesper Lark, which is going to get back a Recruiter, which is going to find whatever's in the top 4 because there is an Aven Mind Sensor. So I like this play out of my opponent. It also frees up their Murderous Redcap, which is likely an essential combo piece. They go ahead and put +1/+1 counters on stuff, attack my Oko for a bunch of damage with their Aven Mind Sensor, which promptly gets elked so I can tutor. I find the Ewit with Neoform, which I drew for the turn. Neoform, basically go into the combo. So I'm taking infinite turns now. And they go ahead and pack in the game. That's kind of the idea. And against like these mid-range style, like value-oriented decks, I think we have a pretty good matchup, right? Because you just kind of can exhaust their resources. I mean, if you look at like, they had a Tireless Tracker on curve, maybe even turn 2, that drew them like 4 to 5 cards, maybe 6 cards. Can't recall. They had a lot of fetch lands, though. It was 1, 2, 3 fetch lands. So probably 4 cards extra. And we're still at 71 cards in deck, right? Like, we're still 8 cards above them in a blue deck, but not really a blue deck. Like, this is not a big blue deck. It's a blue deck really for card selection, not interaction in that way, or not even really card draw. Like, the card draw really comes from, like, the just density of value creatures. But you can see, I mean, like they've drawn some extra cards this game, but the basically this is an entire value engine. This value engine has gotten us very, very low on card, or basically allowed us to see 8 more cards. They have basically more than a full hand size, more than they've seen. And it's done with relatively high card quality, right? Like Oko is not a bad card. I wouldn't say any of the cards that I have in play right now are bad cards. I mean, like Recruiter is a weak body, but at the end of the day, like every card I have either is of high value or replaces itself in some way, shape, or form, which makes it very difficult for most mid-range shells to kind of keep pace with it. It's also quick, right? Like I didn't go that fast in this matchup. I kind of went slow because, well, it was twofold, right? Like I could have gone faster with the Intuition if I wanted to just try to like straight up combo them out. By getting a different package with Intuition. But they had cards in hand. They've been drawing a lot of cards off Tireless Tracker. They're probably running removal in their deck. Probably Assassin's Trophy, Abrupt Decay, probably Collective Brutality, not Instant Speed, I know. Fatal Push, Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile. And, like, why run my combo into that? Like, I feel like, in this sort of matchup, I can wait. I can let them exhaust their hand because over time I'll see more cards and acquire more value than they will because of how my deck's built. So I'd rather just not run into it. Like just force them to show me what they've got, which you do if you keep on developing like this. They got to keep playing stuff out. They got to keep on pressuring this Oko because it's making their creatures irrelevant, etc. So anyways, this is game 1 versus Brahms on Abzan midrange. Abzan probably like I'd say this is Abzan like hybrid midrange, combo midrange, like Malirapod style deck. Quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for the next game. Could even be Sandy B. I don't know if it's that, but it could be. Alright guys, we're back. Hand's great. It's got 2 lands. It's got a turn 1 Mana Dork. It's got a Time Walk, which, is probably just going to be an Explorer early in this matchup, and then I'll find a way to combo with it. Find a Wood Elves, tapped Overgrown Tomb. I could opt to set up the Entomb here. I actually don't because I want to have mana to use the Palace Jailer on following turns. So I just Time Walk and make my land drops, play some creatures out that draw me cards. They play on a Siege Rhino, which is a big boy. And I'm just going to go ahead and Palace Jailer it. They have 2 cards left. I have 3 blockers to their 2 attackers. So even if they have 1 removal spell, they're not getting through. If they have multiple removal spells, they could steal the Monarchy, and I could be in a little more trouble. But it's a risk I'm willing to take. They Inquisition me, say, wow, what a hand. And yeah, my hand's pretty good. It's not bad. It is not a bad hand. Outside of Collector Roof. Collector Roof's pretty bad in this matchup. I mean, I guess it stops the Aether Vial. I'm just sitting here drawing cards. Realistically, like, what I'm doing right now in this game is just looking for more mana. Like, I just want mana. That's why, like, next turn I'm probably going to Savine's Wreck just to make mana with this Lotus Cobra. Best draw in the deck at this point for me is probably a fetch land. Any land is good, though. Like, I just want lands. I go ahead and Court of Calling here, actually for a 2-mana spell, which in this case is just Charming Prince. I could have waited and gone for the combo, but I figured that, like, just going for a pure, like, value line is probably just as good. Charming Prince is EOT. I could have main phased that card at the end of their main phase if I wanted to. And it may have made more sense to do that. I'm not looking to really attack them, though. Like, I'm just looking to kind of, like, sit here and just, like, accrue value. So, yeah, like, a more optimized line with that cord would have been to do it at the end of their main 2 and then get the Charming Prince to have its delayed trigger, bring back the Palace Jailer at their end step. But what's going to happen is it'll come back at my end step. What I'm doing right now is using Lotus Cobra plus Savine's Reclamation and 2 in-graveyard fetch lands to just make a whole boatload of mana and just go ham. Again, no need to attack. I have Ephemerate plus this Seeker here. I'm going to get back this Palace Jailer, and honestly, what I'm going to do here is just Ephemerate the Palace Jailer on something else. The Cartel Aristocrat, which can have protection from a lot of colors, is not going to have enough things, at least as shown on board, to get through my board to steal the Monarchy. And even if it could, they're going to be tapped down at that point and have much less creatures. They go ahead and duress me, take my Entomb, and that's just it. I have a Rebound Ephemerate coming back next turn, which will target the Spell Seeker, which will find Neoform, which will allow me to Neoform the Icefang Hodl into an Eternal Witness, which will get back the Ephemerate, which will then go into Loop. And I'm seeing 2 cards a turn off of the Palace Jailer. Like, they're just pretty... I just got him into a corner here, right? And, again, this hand wasn't exceptionally fast, but I didn't feel like we needed to be in this matchup. I feel like, you let them kind of bleed their cards out on the board. And, as you can see, I mean, they're more of a value-oriented kind of hybrid combo mid-range deck, and there are 87 cards in deck to our 74. So, we've had access to a lot of our cards, which is kind of an attribute I tend to like in decks. I like being able to see... a large volume of options, because at least for me as a player, I feel like that gives me more options to win games. I mean, it does anyone, right? But if you maximize that selection, with your plays, it's going to be a massive boon to you in games of Magic. So anyways, get him here. I don't think it's a particularly great matchup for Abzan, Melirapod. I think our combo is probably... Our value engine's a little more resolute, and I think our combo is probably... It's not really a 2-card combo, right? It's Spellseeker is our combo. So it needs a little less to go right for it. And we're kind of fighting along a similar axis where we're just playing creatures and blocking and attacking. And yeah, I don't think it tends to benefit. I don't think this matchup tends to be very good for Sandy B. But anyways, that's this first game. I'm going to go to a quick pause, guys. I'll be back momentarily for the next game we're going to be showcasing. Alright guys, playing against Root Potato here. They're testing out a new deck concept, and they wanted to do some playtesting against a wider variety of decks. I do think that, more competitive decks they want to test against. So I do think, I don't know if this is a top deck, but I do think this Ephemerate style deck, this shell, is in a minimum tier 2. If you want to use those to to numerate, where a deck stands. But I think this deck's very good. But anyways, yeah, so we're playing against their deck, which is a dredge deck. I am playing with this Ephemerate combo deck, and this hand's not bad. It doesn't really have a great way of getting after the combo, but it produces a ton of mana, and it's got a clock in the form of Tarmogoyf against a deck that I know is, dredging. They gamble here, gamble for Black Lotus, and say, oh, I can't make it. Or they gamble for Black Lotus and pitch the Black Lotus. They're like, oh no. And I've got a 3/4 Tarmogoyf now on turn 2, or 3 rather. Fibble Tip here, and now I've got the combo. So I'm just going to get this Recruiter down, which I found off of my, cantrip creatures. Find the Seeker. And then next turn we'll go into combo mode with our vast mana advantage. They find a Creeping Chill, but my life total and their life total doesn't really matter in this deck, because that's one of the interesting things about this deck, and kind of one of the things that I really enjoy about it is that this deck can play kind of an interactive, value-oriented game plan like a lot of mid-range decks will, but it can also play a game plan where it's I don't really give a shit what you're doing. I'm just going to do my thing and win, which I think is kind of a hallmark of really strong decks in the format. If you have the ability to play an interactive game and or a non-interactive, just I win the game kind of game plan, I think that tends to be good. Anyways, yeah, we're finding our Ephemerate here, blinking the Seeker, finding Time Walk to cast with our Wall of Roots plus this land, and then next turn we'll find Neoform, probably sack the Fibble Thip, find the no problem, bud. Probably find the Eternal Witness, get back the Ephemerate, go into Time Walk loop, and win the game here. Turn 5, right? I mean, realistically, this is a turn 4 kill, right? Because we took a Time Walk turn last turn. So I mean, like I said, It's like a turn 10 deck, but it's like a turn 4 deck, right? Like once you start going into time walk loop, the game's over if they can't interact with it, and they cannot here. So, anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for the next game in this match. All right, guys, back. Hand's good. Hand's good. It's got mana ramp. It's got some selection / card draw. Yeah, got a little bit of everything going on. And they gamble again, and then Entomb a Golgari Grave Troll, but they're down to 3 cards. So they did find their Grave Troll, which is strong. I think the problem is, though, like they don't really kill that fast. They can accrue a lot of value with their game plan, but it's not really a fast kill. Whereas, like, you know, I don't know. Like, Dredge is just in a tough place in the format. Like, I've tried building it. I've never been happy with where I got. It's close, but it's not quite there. DRS, cool. DRS is like randomly interactive. I'm honestly at this point just looking for more mana production. I keep that pile. I possibly should have shuffled that up, but I kind of wanted to. I'll be honest. I kind of want to let them do their thing. I also had a Green Sun Zenith, which is going to allow me to find what here. I guess we'll see. Trying to build equity in the Savine's Reclamation by putting more 3 CMC and less cards in the bin to include the Coiling Oracle. Moto may have... Oh, no, I'm recasting Savine's Rec here. Moto may have broken, though. So I'm going to Savine's Rec here, get back the Arid Mesa and the Coiling Oracle. I'm pretty sure I know my next card on top of my deck, which is a land. I get it with the Coiling Oracle. Still have a land drop to play. Yeah. Yeah, Moto evidently is broken. We win this game pretty decidedly. Like it's very tough for them to kind of break through the stalemate that I'm able to generate with like Savine's Reclamation plus all of these draw cards. Like you just throw Wall Blossoms in front of a Ghoul Steed, and who cares? Like the Wall Blossoms did its job. It drew you a card, blocked for a turn, bought you another draw step. So I mean, it basically drew you 2 cards at that point. And yeah, I forget how we exactly get there, but we get there with this. Could even Green Sun Zenith for like a Fauna Shaman, because they're a lower removal count deck, and that'd probably be just fine to get there. I mean, it would get there on the next turn. But I'm kind of playing to kind of like engine test the deck too. Like, most matchups you would not just Green Sun Zenith for a Fauna Shaman because a lot of decks run removal. But it's in the deck for that purpose, like just to be like another thing they have to kill. But anyways, yep, Moto's broken here, guys. We're not going to get to see the end of this game. Savine's Reclamation on flashback, evidently not working out so hot. But we return Arid Mesa, Coiling Oracle. I'll be honest, I don't remember exactly how I end up turning this game to win it, but I know I do. At some point, I mean, they're down to 1 card, even though they're dredging a bunch and seeing a lot of like cards. Their card quality that they have with flashback, like Acorn Harvest, etc., is just not like all that high. And I'm kind of able to stay alive long enough to find the cards I need to go into combo mode and just win. So anyways, quick pause. Be back momentarily for the next game. All right, guys, we're playing 5-color bad stuff here. This hand's great. It's got card draw. It's got mana acceleration. Got an Unearth if I need to bring back one of these walls or cycle it for more card draw. So I mean, it's got a lot of redraws in it. Opponent's playing evidently a very aggressive white-based deck. They got Healer's Hawk. Not a really high card quality, but I mean, if they're like on Stompy, they can get us. So they play a Hushbringer here, which I'm just like, whoa, okay. That card's very problematic for our deck because, we have ways of dealing with it, right? Like, it's not like so problematic we can't win through it, but it is a card that stops the kind of core engine of our deck. As you can see, I mean, it's stopping like this wall, all these walls I've got. Like, basically all these creatures in hand are just junk. They're just 1/1s for 3 and 2. I just go ahead and block the Brahmas here. What I'm looking to do is Intuition, EOT, and then find like a way to deal with the Hushbringer so I can kind of combo them out. Hopefully Moto doesn't totally freeze up on this. One of the things I didn't think about. Yeah, so I find Oko and then a bunch of removal. I just go ahead and... Hey, what we're going to do, guys, is this. I'm going to go ahead and restart... I'm going to pause. Then we're going to restart Moto and come back to this game. Because I don't think what it looks like is happening is like Moto's trying to cast Savine's Reclamation in this game. Is what it looks like. My guess would be I would just use my mana on their EOT to kill the Hushbringer. So I can start comboing off on the next turn with a Recruiter. But anyways, let's go on a quick pause. Be back momentarily to kind of cover this game. Hopefully it's just some Moto... lag, and it's not all of these games. But yeah, let's jump out of it and come back, and we'll hopefully get some good gameplay. All right, guys, we're back, and we're hoping this is going to work. All right, so Healer's Hawk, yep. Play on our wall. Play on our land tapped, and we get Hushbringer this turn, I want to say, which is pretty rough. But we find the Intuition. Intuition's going to find our removal, and hopefully the Motor Replay works at this point. So we're not taking a ton of damage, though. That's kind of the nice thing. I mean, they're gaining life, but like I said, like our deck doesn't really need to attack along a life point axis. It's not really a racing deck. I'm pretty happy to be making my land drops, even though I'm not able to cast my cantrip trigger or cantrip creatures. Go ahead and block the Brahmas. Should Intuition EOT. I believe it's for Oko plus 2 white base removal spells. So they basically have to give me the value engine or give me the cards. I believe they give me Oko this game. Yeah, maybe the game's just bugged. Yeah, because if I recall this game correctly, they give me Oko. They give me Oko, I end up elking the Hushbringer, playing out a wall, and eventually comboing them out. So we're going to try to go to game 2. I'm sorry, guys. Some of these replays, I guess, are just a little hinky with all the tutors that are going on. But yeah, I do recall I got Oko out of that pile, not Swords to Plowshares. They didn't want to give me that card, or Path, which I don't know if that's correct or not. Maybe they thought they could just beat through my team walls. They don't eventually beat through team walls, and Oko kind of helps with that. And we eventually get to a combo line with our Recruiter the Guard by getting to enough mana. So that because we get Oko, we end up doing is playing out Oko plus playing out another wall to block with. I think it's actually, it's probably Wall of Omens. Into draw land, into play Elves of Deep Shadow, into combo off on the following turn with Recruiter the Guard, finding the Spellseeker plus Ephemerate to essentially set up an infinite time walk loop on the turn following. It's kind of the sequence of play that happens here, and they're down to 4 cards. I mean, they definitely have board advantage, but the only card that really matters on the board for me, specifically from this point, based on kind of what their deck looks like, is Hushbringer. The card shuts off a lot of my deck, and because I'm able to find 3 cards that shut off Hushbringer, I can turn my deck back on and kind of win. Anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for the next game, and hopefully the replay does work. All right, guys, we are back. This hand looks good. I mean, it's got mana acceleration, it's got tutors. It's got a little bit of everything going on. Again, start off with a Healer's Hawk. Cool by me. Play out my fetch land to play around the Wasteland. They could also be on Blood Moon because they're playing Boros. And they appear to have a lot of basics. I just find a forest here because I feel like I have the ability to find a forest here to play around Blood Moon. Also got a Paradise Druid down, which gives me access to... they like to Helix my face, which is really aggressive. I think maybe you save that, but if their mana is going to be tied up the next couple turns, like maybe you don't. I just go ahead and get a Imperial Recruiter down. They have the other bolt. They have the bolt. So they bolt my Mana Dork. I find the Seeker, play out the other Mana Dork that I've drawn to give me access to more mana on the following turn. Unfortunately, I am going to be shy 1 mana of actually going through a full combo loop. I blocked their Kithian because if they want to make it indestructible, they're not going to be playing more threats out. So I think that attack was kind of it was a bluff, but I don't think it was a great bluff. So it's kind of funny, right? Like, so they wheel both our hands because they know I've tutored a bunch. And they probably want to get rid of the cards that I've tutored for. It also puts them back up on cards because they're down a little bit on cards. The funny thing is they wheel me, and I draw into Savine's Reclamation, Reanimate, Regrowth, like Eternal Witness, like all these cards that like interact really well in my graveyard. So I mean, I did have a good draw. Don't get me wrong. This is a very solid draw 7 for me. But that's one of the things too, right? Like you can wheel this deck or get rid of its hand, especially if it's a wheel effect, and it has the ability through losing some of those cards, like Seeker at this point, and Survival of the Fittest, etc., to actually just get that stuff back, just buy it back, which is what we're going to do. We're going to go to a full combo loop this turn. Reanimate actually makes it easier to combo because it's cheaper than actually casting Spellseeker, which is nice. So we Ephemerate, find the walk, cast the walk, play a Mana Dork out, go to my next turn, seek again, find Unearth, because I already have the Eternal Witness. Get the Eternal Witness, returning the Ephemerate, use the Caracas to cast Ephemerate on Eternal Witness, returning Time Walk, go into the full loop. The reason I got Unearth is in case they have, like, I don't know, like, gosh, I can't think of it, like Fire Blast, or some other nonsense. Given if I was going to do that, I probably shouldn't have tapped my Black Source, but hey, live and learn. I didn't think it was really that relevant. I just found something to get back a card. In this case, it could be Imperial Recruiter as well, which is pretty good. But anyways, we have the full loop here, set up by turn 5. Actually, this is technically turn 4. So anyways, it's a turn 4 kill, right? Because we walked the turn prior, I think. I have to relook at it. I think we did. But anyways, kind of goes to show some of the resilience of the deck. Like it's good against aggro decks too. It's just not a great matchup for 5-color bad stuff's deck. So yeah, end up getting him here. Quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for some more gameplay with the deck. Alright, guys, we're back. We're playing against Illini. They're playing Jeskai Blitz. This hand does not produce enough mana. It doesn't produce the right colors of mana to function. This hand's fine. We're probably going to get rid of Cam Ball in the dark. I'm not going to play like I know what they're on, but actually Cam Ball's pretty good against their deck. So they play a lot of pump spells. They're kind of like a feather deck. Draw a land. Not bad. I just play out the tap land, because if they wasteland me, I don't really care all that much. Go ahead and fetch here, finding Tundra. Cast out my Charming Prince to scry. Believe I bottom one, top one. I think I actually topped the Savine's Wreck. They attacked me for 2. I'm going to take a lot of damage here, because this card, Adeliz, is going to get pumped by a bunch of pump spells, more than likely. They're kind of like a pump spell deck. I gain 2 off the Finks, and then next turn I have access to my Palace Jailer, which should take away their threat. They're a lower threat density deck that plays more effects like these, that pump their threats, like make them very good. So I'm making 14 here, which is definitely no joke. Like, that's a lot of damage. And if they have like a Bolt plus another burn spell, they can just kill me. But because they're playing a lot of pump spells, like I feel like I'm pretty safe here. Like, I have to go for it anyways. Like, I have to remove this threat or else I'm definitely going to die, I think. I just block here. I mean, if they have Pump Spell, great. They kill my Palace Jailer, but it doesn't really matter. It's better than giving them the Monarchy. I cast Savine's Wreck here. Oh, I'm sorry. I cast this just to get a Goyf. I overcast it on mana, which is wrong, technically. Like, if they have, like, Spell Pierce or Daze, they just get me. The reason I get Goyf is I want to just end the game. I go into Eternal Witness here, or I'm sorry, Recruiter here to see. Like, I don't know what I'm even going to find. I find Soul Herder. It doesn't really matter what I find here. I was trying to see if I had a way just to remove this blocker, like to bounce the blocker. I don't in deck. This is not a Mana War deck, or even a Reflector Mage deck, which it possibly could be. You could try to put those effects in your deck. But like I said, oftentimes I'm finding that I don't really oftentimes tend to play the incremental game plan against the decks that like. You would have typically like the mid-range mirrors where you would want to play the incremental game plan. Like your cards already do it well enough. They're like bouncing their cards just doesn't really have enough of an effect, in my opinion. It's not good enough. I'd rather just put more blockers in the way and like eventually get after my combo, which is at its heart kind of uninteractive if you do it at the right time. So yeah. I mean they're in a forced block situation here, so unless they have like Bolt, plus block, like they're not gonna win. I mean, this is a forced block, so like if they draw Bolt after this fact, or like if they draw like Chain Lightning after this fact, it should put me to 1. So yeah, managed to get this first one here, and on to game number 2, guys. All right, guys, we're back. Hand's not as good as the first one, but it's acceptable. Like it's got an Ooze, which can accrue some incremental life. It's also got this Teferi. It draws a Mana Dork because I'm a Luxac, and find my Trop. Play out Mana Dork, and plan on just Teferi whenever they play this next turn. The Teferi is going to die, but like I'm just looking to draw into my deck and force their action. Draw a Lotus Cobra, because again I'm a Luxac. Play out my fetch land. Still play out my Teferi and have some greater mana advantage. This hand's trying just to bide time, because I want to get to enough mana to Court of Calling for Seeker with Ephemerate mana up on their EOT, and set up for a win on the turn following that sequence of play. So the Teferi dies here. Again, perfectly fine. They're not really a Jeskai counterspell deck. They're a Jeskai Blitz deck. So, like, they're playing, like, Burn, which can interact with my threats, but they're not playing counterspells, so I'm not... Or, I don't think they are. Like, I haven't seen any out of their deck before. I get attacked here. Yep. I do the math. I'm 1 mana short of doing what I want to do. Main phase with Court of Calling, so I opt just to leave up my mana on their turn. They actually don't attack me, which is interesting. I guess they're worried about something I could do. Get the Seeker here. Ephemerate the Seeker into Time Walk. Ephemerate rebounds, upkeep into Neoform, I want to say. Into win the game. So, yep. I just killed the Lotus, or I'm sorry, the Skoos here. I can find any way to win in my deck. The Lotus Cobra makes it easier to produce mana, is kind of my thing. I don't know why I attacked there. I think it's just like, hey, the game's over. Yeah, I should have attacked there. They have a Storm Chaser Mage, just blocks my Lotus Cobra. It doesn't really matter if they block, because I mean, I can draw forever, draw cards forever until I find a way to win. So yeah, they may be unfamiliar with the combo too. But I eventually tell him here, like, hey, I got it. Like, I got the combo. Like, let's pack it in. We pack it in. So managed to get him here with Ephemerate. I'm gonna try to find like one more game, guys. Then we'll probably call it there. But this is kind of what the deck does. Like, you kind of got to see it work a couple times. A couple of the replays broken. Sorry. I probably should have checked them before I started trying to record. But unfortunately, a couple of the replays are broken. But you kind of get to see it, I think, enough of like what this deck is about, what it's trying to do. Do I think the shell is perfect? No. I mean, like, there's probably some efficiencies to be gained in the shell that I've got built here, but it's good. Like, I think the shell is close, and it's pretty good at what it does, right? Like, it just, I don't know. I think it's a pretty solid Tier 2 deck, maybe even Tier 1. I don't know. Like, it's funny, right? Because, like, the Storm decks just lost a point, the Lands decks lost a point, and the Time Vault decks lost a point. The Time Walk decks have not lost a point, so... take that for what it is. Maybe that means there's enough like equity to be built into these lists with that extra point that the top decks have kind of lost. And maybe there's something to it. Like, I do think this deck's very good against fair decks. I think it's very good against red deck wins. I think it's quite good against Death and Taxes. Really depends on their draw, too, and how they built their deck. But, like, the typical, like, hate pieces that they'll want to run in their flex slots, or, like, the hate that they're going to tend to run in their decks is going to be more geared towards, like, stuff like, I tend to think, like, Academy or Storm. I guess they have to prepare a little bit for Pod, too. So, I mean, they could have cards like Hush Wing Griff, Hushbringer. I don't think those cards are that good because I think the best like Death and Taxes builds tend to be a little more mid-rangey than like the older versions of it, like the black-white versions are a little more low to the ground, interactive with like hand attack, stuff like that. I think they tend to be a little more like bigger mana, like they're fast mana decks now. It's like, I mean, they still have instant speed interaction too. So I mean, Death and Taxes is still kind of like probably a 50-50 matchup. If you're playing against a good build and a good player on the deck, but I think it's winnable. Your worst matchups are probably still like your Storm decks. That's why I have the hate pieces in here, like Camball. And it also can go fast, right? Like, you can just fish. You can just fish pretty quickly. But that even said, like, Storm's a pretty interactive deck. I mean, they have like stuff like Fire Ice. They have Chain of Vapor to kind of stymie your Ephemerate combo if need be. That's still, I think, a pretty tough matchup, but it's winnable. So anyways, I'm going to go on a quick pause, guys. Like I said, one more game, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut this video there to have provided you, hopefully, more gameplay with this deck, because some folks commented that they were interested in seeing more of the deck play out. Alright, guys, we're back playing its Magic Stronghold here, Jordan Wu, of Cardboard Confrontation. This hand's perfectly fine. It's got card selection, it's got mana acceleration, it's got overall card power level. Got pretty much everything you could want going on in the Dark. Don't know what Jordan's going to be playing here. I'm just going to accelerate with turn 1 Dork. If the Dork lives, I'll have an Oko probably on turn 2. If it does not, or if I get Wastelanded or something, then I'll probably just go ahead and Ponder. I draw into a Wall of Roots, though, so makes sense. Play on Oko, make a food. OP's on like a red deck. Red decks doesn't do very well against Oko or Wall of Roots. Play on a Palace Jailer, steal the Crater Maker. This is kind of actually, like, so this is going to be a beating, right? Like, I don't remember this game. I didn't remember this game before I selected it, but Jordan's not going to win this one. I think they're on, like, a medium red build. But the reason that this is kind of actually interesting, and it's a cool game to actually hit, is because it kind of shows, like, what this deck will tend to do against some more of the pure aggressive decks in the format. Charming Princing here. Yep, makes sense. It's just really tough for them to win this matchup because our cards just present a ton of value, also block really well, just make it very difficult for them to at card parity kind of get through. They cast a bunch of stuff, Fire Ambush my Dork. I'm actually having trouble getting mana in this game, but as is the case in most times, like, this deck will eventually find its mana because it's a very mana-rich deck. Start beating them down, killing their Koths. They cast out a Storm, a Breath Dragon, but I have an Assassin's Trophy, so it doesn't really matter all that much. I just trophy it here to give them another land, and turn my Wall of Omens to a 3/3, an Elk, and beat down for a bunch. I think I had Lethal on board anyways. But yeah, anyways, they get a turn 3 Oko. I mean, it could have been a turn 2 Oko, but Wasteland kind of precluded that. Although the Wasteland line is, like, risky, right? Especially if you're on the draw and you're Wastelanding turn 1 against a Mana Dork. Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe you still do it if you don't have a way to disrupt the Mana Dork, but, like, it's kind of like you're giving up a land drop to kill their land drop, but they're already up a land. So I don't know. I mean, it's just a tough matchup, right? Just tough. Like I do think this is medium red. They didn't really have the medium draw. Like they didn't have like the crypt or anything like that. But even so, like I think medium red is still a deck that this deck has a decent time against. Now they do have some Blood Moon type effects, which can be problematic. But again, like we have cards like we have a lot of mana dorks for starters to kind of like get around Moon effects, and then we have our Assassin's Trophy, our Abrupt Decay, our Knight of Autumn. Quite a few ways like Solid Pride Mage, quite a few ways of dealing with effects like that. Yeah. So, anyways, quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for game number 2 against medium red. All right, guys, back for game 2. Hand's fine. Not as explosive as the first one. No mana dork unless I draw one here. I don't, but that's going to be kind of nice later on. It's going to ramp me by a land. I just go ahead and find an island here to ponder. Find birds and a bunch of lands. I think I actually opt to keep it. I probably shouldn't have. They play on an Immolation Shaman. I just go ahead and get the Fauna Shaman down. If they don't kill my Fauna Shaman, I'm going to be able to find the Seeker. They kill the Shaman, though, which is smart. That's what you should do. I'm going to take a bunch of damage off this Immolation Shaman, though. It's going to get me pretty good. Play out a Renegade Rallier, get back the Fauna Shaman, which I'm still going to take damage off of the Immolation Shaman from activating it. I go ahead and attack their Chandra here. They do block, sacrifice to kill off the Fauna Shaman. I think they want to do that on their turn, though, because I'm going to be able to find the Seeker now, which is going to allow me to combo out. And part of that kind of comes with the territory of like knowing what it is that my deck does, like the combo route. And in the first game, they didn't really see that. They just saw Oko like basically win me the game, which is something that card can do against a lot of decks. My thing dies. Cool. I'd rather that go to my thing than my face. Yeah. I definitely should have pathed first. I guess I needed a fetch if I wanted to play this out and path. I also wanted to draw here, though. I go ahead and path my own thing, actually. Oh, that's right. I was short on mana, so I had done some math, was short on mana, and needed the land drop on the following turn. Needed an additional land on the following turn to actually combo off. So this allows me to ephemerate, find Time Walk. This is a pretty sick line, actually. I like how I played this. This is pretty sweet, actually. At first, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna path their Hamwar Garrison Militia or whatever the thing is." Instead, I path my own idiot just to make mana. So I'm never gonna give them the turn back here. This is pretty sweet, actually. This is fun. I regrowth the Time Walk. Time Walk here. Play on an Unearth to get birds back to get more mana, which is going to allow me to Chord of Calling for an Eternal Witness. With enough mana to get back Ephemerate, cast Ephemerate targeting Eternal Witness to get back Time Walk to go into a full lock on the game. So, pretty cool game, actually. I like how I played this. This is pretty sweet. Anyways, guys, yeah, this is fun. For me, at least. I mean, maybe some other folks think this is just degenerate nonsense. But actually, pretty sick line. Anyways, yeah, managed to get medium red here with this Ephemeration combo deck. Mid-range combo deck. Get Palace Jailer just going off. I think Jordan lets me play through it, so I'll let the game play through. The game's over here, but Jordan lets me play through it, I think. Just time walking, doing all kinds of bullshit. Yeah. I obviously can't pass the turn back to them at this point, because if they have Price of Progress, I just die, like, utterly to that card. Oh, I don't take a turn this time. I just get rid of their blocker and then attack them for lethal. And target Ephemerate with Snapcaster or whatever. So yeah, pretty fun game. I hope you guys enjoyed the revisit of Ephemeration, this deck right here. I do think the deck's quite good. I don't know if it's top deck, but it's very good. Like, I think it's very, very good. Like I said, like, I built it, played it for a little bit, and then kind of got off it, and started playing again recently just to get the density of games to put up another video on it. It's one of those decks that, like, was very fun to build, is very interesting from a theoretical standpoint, but to me, like, it gets to a point where, like, the lines are just too linear and it's not that fun for me to play. But it is very good. Like I think it's a very good deck. But it kind of plays a lot like Time Bolt, like a Time Bolt deck. Um, which if I'm gonna play Time Bolt, I'd rather just play Time Bolt, right? But yeah, that's the deck, guys. That's what this deck gets up to. It does struggle a little more against blue decks, but again, like if you mulligan correctly, I think you have pretty decent opportunity to beat most things in the format. And you have the tools in deck with tutors to beat some of the bad matchups as well, because of kind of some of the inborn flexibility into a deck like this, given the style of tutors it can run. So, anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed. I'm going to go ahead and cut it there. Take care, and hopefully see you guys back later for some more Canadian Highlander.